So I just finished Tomb Raider, the reboot, not the good one. Tomb Raider 2013 is a modern AAA third-person shooter. 5 out of 10. No, seriously, it's it is very much a modern AAA game and everything that implies. It's fine. Basically, it's an okay game if you don't expect too much and you just wanna waste like about what was my playtime, like 10 hours or so. Let me take a look at that. I think it was about 10 hours. Let's see, where is it? That should be under here. Yeah, 9 hours. Okay, yeah, I spent 9 hours on it. Yeah, if you wanna spend about 9 hours on a game and not have to worry about it being like weirdly terrible or anything, then Tomb Raider is a perfectly acceptable way to spend that time. It's not great, it's not terrible. It's got good bits, it's got problems. Mostly, it's just fine. The combat is competent, but it's pretty monotonous for the most part. It's pretty standard. Third person shooter, dual analog. You got a cover system. You got a melee attack, which isn't super useful because they don't want to have you like just run in and fucking hack everyone to death, because that would be too cool, I guess. So, most of the time you're going to be crouching behind walls and fucking shooting at dudes who are also crouching behind walls, or sometimes they run at you, whatever. Sometimes you can get like a cool moment if you like find yourself in a bad situation and manage to get out of it with like effective use of your melee abilities, or through like a well-placed grenade or something, whatever. There are like actual mechanics here that can have the potential for cool moments. The problem is just that they're pretty underutilized and shallow, so there's not a lot of depth to be found, and you're definitely not going to just be constantly doing cool shit like in, say, Resident Evil 4. But it's fine, it works. I didn't shit, I just dropped some caps. Anyway, I didn't find any point where the combat seemed to be broken or just like fell apart or anything. It's fine. It's okay. But yeah, it gets pretty monotonous. Towards the end of the game, they end up switching the enemy varieties with or not varieties, but the types of enemies that you're fighting. They end up switching that up by having you fight these like feudal Japan dudes with like Oni masks and stuff. And those are pretty fucking cool, actually. I like those guys. I like their aesthetic. I like all of the feudal Japan stuff in this game, honestly. I think that's very cool. I sure wish that most of the runtime of the game wasn't spent on fucking shooting regular ass dudes in bombed out bunkers. That would be nice if that weren't the case. But it is what it is. There's also there's the set piece that pops up where Lara ends up hanging by her foot upside down, and you have to use the pistol to like fend off dudes coming at you while you're hanging upside down, and that's actually pretty cool. At least the first time it is. The problem is that it happens several times over the course of the game, and it's exactly the same every time. Like there's no difference between each usage of this, so it that just feels kind of lazy, and it's like okay, you've got a functional set piece here that is cool and interesting the first time, but then the second, third, and I think it was used 4 times altogether. The second, third, and fourth time are fucking boring, just the exact same shit that you've already done. Like, why are we doing this again? If you're gonna bring back the same set piece concept, then fucking do something with it, for God's sake. Fucking do something with it. But yeah, that's the combat. It's fine. It's got some problems. It's got some good stuff. The weapons all feel pretty decent to use. But overall, it's okay. Now, I think that probably the best part of the game, by a pretty wide margin, in fact, and definitely like the thing that I would recommend it for if it sounds like if what I'm about to describe sounds interesting to you, is the platforming and exploration, which are really fun. Lara has kind of a streamlined platforming system where it's not quite like full free platforming like in a Prince of Persia or something like that, but it's not just fucking automatic hold 2 buttons and run Assassin's Creed style bullshit. You actually do have like a jump button, and you have to manually jump, and sometimes you have to like hit a button to manually grab onto a ledge, but it's more streamlined. It's not fucking complicated pseudo parkour systems, like again, say a Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, or whatever. And if you're if you like platforming, and if you're looking for something that if you want to do some platforming that actually like has a certain degree of mechanics to it, and actually requires you to pay attention to what you're doing to some degree, and basically if you don't want to have the gameplay itself like in Assassin's Creed, but if you're also not looking for something as intensive as Prince of Persia, then this is a good middle ground, I think, and it's pretty enjoyable. The animations for the platforming are well done for the most part, and it's fun to find ways to traverse environments. The environments are kind of like these densely packed multi-leveled things where you've got very very well telegraphed like bits that you can climb on and whatnot. Anything that you can climb on or like interact with is telegraphed by having white on it, either white ropes wrapped around it if it's something that you can also interact with your rope arrow once you get that, or just having some like white paint that's like almost peeled off but not quite on it. So if you're trying to figure out what you can interact with in the environment, just look for the thing that is like bright white, and that'll work, which is a pretty decent bit of it's pretty decent environment design to have like this sort of tell that like shows you what you can and can't interact with without having it be an out of universe thing, right? Sorry, had a little throat issue there, but anyway, yeah, it's the exploration and platforming, they work really well. I think that they're a lot of fun. I think that it's enjoyable to find these different routes through the environment that you can do with your different platforming tools at your disposal. And if you really go all out and search around and stuff, then you will be rewarded with mostly with artifacts, actually, which are actually pretty cool, because you look at them and like it's an actual 3D model of the artifact in question, and Lara goes like into what its historical significance is, which is, I think, a really cool touch. It's nice that they managed to get the archaeology thing in there, even if you don't actually raid any tombs in this game. At least, I mean, I guess there are some things that might be considered tombs, but yeah, whatever. The point is, it's the game's called Tomb Raider, but you don't spend most of the game raiding tombs. That's the joke. That's the joke everyone's been making for the past 4 years, and I've done it too now. But yeah, the platforming and exploration are fun, and you get rewarded for them with actually cool bits of trivia, mostly about feudal Japan, which I think is neat. Yeah, the story is, obviously more of a focus in this game than it was in earlier Tomb Raider games. Obviously, because it's a AAA game, and they gotta have a cinematic experience story thing. It's fine, in theory. Like, the idea of Lara being, just a regular person who ends up in this horrible situation and has to become like a hardened killer to survive, it has merit. It's a fine concept. My problem comes in with the fact that it's undercut by like a lack of actual visible change in the character over the course of the game, especially in gameplay. Because like the first time you kill someone, it's kind of made a big deal of, but then like immediately after that, you're like instantly just killing people constantly. Like Lara becomes a killing machine over the course of about 10 in-game minutes, right? Like it doesn't take long for her to reach the final form of I will kill everyone who stands in the way of my survival. But at the same time, she, like, cutscenes will insist that she still has like a conscience about it for most of the game, which feels off. And then the other big thing is that, like, a big theme of the game is that she becomes a lot more competent over the course of the game, in addition to becoming more hardened and less squeamish, right? Like, not only does she have less of a problem with killing the people who are trying to kill her, but she also gets better at it, supposedly. But this is not reflected in gameplay at all. The closest that you have to character progression in terms of like Lara's abilities and skills increasing is you get new equipment over the course of the game, but that's not an increase in skill. That is, I have a new tool that I can now use. It's not Lara getting better at what she's doing. It's Lara being given more utilities at her disposal to allow her to do it better. But like the aspects of the game that are actually Lara's personal skill don't change at all over the course of the game. Like the B button is like a dodge function that you can use to to like scramble around enemy attacks and scramble into cover and whatnot. And you know, at the beginning of the game, it's like, it looks really clumsy. Like, it looks like Lara is just kind of like fucking face planting into the ground and like, you know, panic crawling her way towards the nearest bit of cover. Which makes sense. That works. That works for somebody who did not expect to find herself in this situation, does not have any combat experience, you know, doesn't know what the fuck she's doing, and is just fucking panicking because holy shit, that guy has an axe. Like, that works and that makes sense. The problem is, by the end of the game, when you're supposed to be a hardened killing machine and when you've killed hundreds of dudes, that dodge animation still looks exactly the fucking same. She still always looks like she's panicking and does not know how to dodge. You know, and then in terms of aiming and whatnot, which is, you know, the other major like skill-based aspect to the combat, that she's good at aiming from the start of the game. Like, from the very start of the game, you can aim weapons pretty easily. You know, just put your reticle on the thing and pull the trigger, no big deal. So yeah, I think that they really missed an opportunity to. I mean, I'm not going to harp on them for the fact that aiming doesn't change over the course of the game, because I understand that could be really fucking obnoxious if they had tried to do that. You know, it could be really fucking obnoxious to have you aim, you know, to make it much harder to aim at the beginning of the game. Not to mention that would actually make the game easier towards the end, which is not ideal. But I do feel like the dodge animation was a really big missed opportunity, because they wouldn't have had to have changed mechanically how it works at all. They could have made it work the same from a mechanic standpoint, and then just changed the animation so that she looks more and more competent and in control as the game progresses. And I think that would have really sold the themes better. But they just didn't do that. Actually, just last night, the night before I recorded this, Mr. Feel, aka the Feel of a Video Game on Tumblr, you may or may not be familiar. He used to run Loltaku, but he ended up quitting that. He uploaded a video talking about story limitations in games, and one of the things he touched on was how it's really cool to have story reflected in gameplay, even if it's just something minor like an animation. Like you mentioned in Breath of Fire 3, when you start out, your character doesn't know shit about fuck when it comes to using a sword, and he still like plays fine from a mechanical standpoint. Like, he's just an RPG character who, you know, will hit enemies with the physical attack and whatnot. But towards the beginning of the game, he'll like turn away and close his eyes and just kind of flail his sword around and end up hitting the enemy like that. Whereas later on, once he becomes more competent and actually understands how to use a sword, it's just a regular attack animation where he faces down the enemy, swings his sword once, and hits it. And, you know, that's the kind of thing that I would have liked to see in this game, is, you know, not necessarily changing mechanics to reflect Lara's skill, because again, that would be obnoxious, or could be anyway. Could very easily be obnoxious. It would be hard to do well, is basically what I'm saying. But, you know, do something. Give us some changes in animation. You know, sell the fact that sell the fact that Lara is more competent and more confident in, you know, in the end of the game than she is at the beginning. You know, that's all I want. Just use the actual, like, use the tools at your disposal in this medium to help sell your story. But yeah, the story is basically fine, though. I didn't really care about it, but it wasn't like astonishingly broken or anything. I just didn't give a fuck. So, you know, whatever. It's fine. The final boss, however, is not fine. You fight this big ogre dude, and you just dodge his attack, and then attack back, and you dodge his attack, and you attack. It's fucking boring and dumb and stupid, and I barely fucking remember it, because it was so fucking bad. I almost forgot to put it in my little notes outline here, because I almost forgot that it was a thing. Because it's just a fucking stupid, shitty, forgettable final boss monster guy. After that, though, there's a finale bit where you beat like the villain dude in like a quick time event cutscene thing, which is less than ideal. But what's cool is that at the end of that little quick time event cutscene thing, there's a neat callback where throughout this whole game you've had one of each weapon, right? You use your one of each thing. You know, you got one pistol. But during the quick time event, the other guy has a pistol and he ends up dropping it. And Lara picks up his pistol and fucking dual wields him to death, and you gotta mash both triggers to fire both pistols, and it is very clearly like the exact same you know, walking forward while firing dual pistols animation that everybody thinks of when they think of the original Tomb Raider, and I thought that was a really cool callback. You know, it's not like a major point or anything. I just thought it was neat. I enjoyed it. It gave me a smile. It was also kind of cool how there actually was like a supernatural thing at the end where there was genuinely like this Japanese like demon spirit thing that was going to possess Lara's friend. I wasn't expecting this game to actually like go with that, you know. I mean, there were hints at it because like you know there was like a big ogre dude who had like a club and whatnot earlier in the game, but I wasn't, you know, like that could have been just a big guy, you know. I would have accepted that was a big guy if they had told me that was just a big guy, but the fact that they're actually that like you know, at a certain point towards the end of the game it becomes apparent that yes, there actually is legitimate supernatural stuff going on here surprised me, and I thought that was pretty neat. I also like how metal some of the imagery in this game is. Like this game is not shy about using fucking blood and gore. I mean, there's a part where you're like drop down to where like there are just a bunch of like decaying bodies, and you have to like wade through a river of blood to get out, which is fucked, and it's also metal as hell. And I thought that was pretty cool. I wish that the thing is like all the cool bits in this game are kind of just like, oh, here's a thing which is cool. Anyway, now back to the normal game, which is pretty boring. Like that's my biggest problem with this game, is it has cool stuff in it. It just doesn't. They don't take up enough of the runtime. Most of the runtime just feels like pretty boring filler. But you know, if like I spent 9 hours on the game, and I would say maybe 3 of those hours were spent feeling like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Which, you know, that's not to say that the rest of the game was terrible. The rest of the game was just you know, it was just unremarkable. It was okay, I guess. It was fine. Whatever. Again, it can be hard to talk about AAA games sometimes because 9 times out of 10 with any like big AAA third-person dual analog shooty bang action game, 9 times out of 10 my opinion on it is going to be, it's fine. You know, I don't like it because it bores me, but it's okay. It's all right. There's nothing like horribly broken about it. It's okay. But you know, and this is why I don't play a lot of these games. I played Tomb Raider because I ended up getting it in, I think, a Humble Bundle or something like that. And Digibro, like whenever Digibro talks about this game, he talks about how great it is, which I fucking disagree. But yeah, so I was interested because you know, he talked about like the stuff that he liked from it, and all that stuff that he liked was present. It just wasn't enough to make me actually like give a shit about the game, because so much of it is just boring 100% standard AAA video game. But yeah, it's a fine game. It's okay. On my Rosen meter, it gets 4 out of 10. Yeah, whatever. I considered giving it the 3 out of 10, yeah, okay, because that is how I felt about most of the game, but I think that the little bits of interesting stuff are enough to upgrade it to a